The ABCs of personal marketing. The A stands for appearance, B stands for behavior, and C communication.
It's okay to have butterflies. Just make sure they fly in the same direction. Dress how you want to be addressed. And take control of how people talk to you and how they treat you through like what you're wearing and through your appearance.
Look the part. Dress to impress.
Him seeing my successful track record, that's what made him decide to write me $1,000 check.
We've been lied to most of our lives. And this is how.
Hello, and welcome. You are now tuned in to the Great Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Mills.
My name is Carly Anessa.
And I'm Kyle Thomas. How you doing, everybody?
And this week, we have a special episode for you all. So we decided to do things a little different here, and we have a specific topic set up for you guys today. And we wanted to discuss that you're selling yourself through life and you don't even know it. Today, we're going to talk about the ABCs of personal marketing.
Facts. So when we talk about ABCs of personal marketing, it's not just a catchy tagline, right? By ABCs, yes, these are fundamentals, but we're talking about appearance, behavior, and communication. How do those contribute to your personal brand, or even how do those contribute to painting a whole picture of who you are, right?
So when you say personal brand, can you explain to the audience, what does it actually mean to have a personal brand? Because quite often I hear people talk about, you got to have a brand, or if it's not a personal brand, then it's a business brand. So what is it? Like, what's the most basic definition of a personal brand?
I'll keep it simple. When people hear your name, what do they think about? What do they envision? What do they picture? What does this person make me think about? Right? In short, that's what it is. If you want to go into details, it's a compilation of various entities that constitute who you are.
Okay, interesting. So an example could be, when I hear Nike, I think just do it. I think sports. I think, athleticism. I think anything between apparel or not apparel, then, actual, maybe even celebrity sometimes, depending on the deals. So that's an example of that.
That's a great example. That's for a company. You also have individuals, as you mentioned, right? So let's say if you think of Cristiano Ronaldo in football or soccer, for example, you think of a guy that works hard, has a crazy work ethic, but that's also handsome, right? So you see him in a lot of, different commercials, and he has more billables in the sense that when you think of these artists, entertainers, their billables are the amount of things that they could be selling or the amount of talents that they could sell. So for example, let's say if Cristiano Ronaldo could dance, that's an extra billable. If Cristiano Ronaldo can look great shirtless or stuff like that, that's another billable, right? So that's going into marketing and how people can do it. But for you, what does that mean exactly? Is you want to think about, okay, what are you extremely good at, right? What do you do at the highest level, and what can you be? What can represent you as a talent, right?
So essentially, that's it's like you're doing a SWOT analysis on yourself, like trying to identify what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. My understanding, right?
Yeah. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and areas for growth as well, right? Upside.
Yeah, nice. Do you have anything to add to that? Like, how would you define personal branding?
Yeah, so very much in alignment with what Carl just mentioned, I think of the personal brand as what people know you for, right? So, for example, if you think about Barack Obama, do you think about the first black president in modern history of America? So, it's the things people they know you for, essentially. And I could also think back to us. I'll give a more basic example that's probably not as popular, but if I have to think about my grandfather, then I know that he's known for being strict, right? And in some ways, that's his personal brand. So if grandpa had to ever open up an Instagram profile, I expect to see some strictness. As Carl was mentioning, it's sort of like you decide what you pick and choose as what you're going to bring forward to publicly market as a brand. And we have many different aspects about an individual where, you may be excellent at school, you may be excellent in modeling, you may be excellent in music, right? And you could decide, okay, which one of these are you going to push forward, which goes back towards this SWOT analysis, like you mentioned, all right? And you could choose one of those strengths, so you can push forward as a personal brand. So, the way I see it, it's essentially what do people they know you as, and we have that liberty, that choice to decide, okay, I'm going to push forward this aspect of myself to build my personal brand around this. And at the end of the day, people will only know what you put out. They won't necessarily know the other side of you that is probably studying up late at nights and so forth, right? That's like the behind the scenes. That's a shadow work, if you want to call it that.
So when you say, it's like your personal brand is what you put out there. So I'll give an example, on my LinkedIn, when I was in my second year of university, I was primarily focused on pushing out content that showed what I was doing at those case competitions. So really trying to show that I'm someone who competes in those business scenarios. And I guess that was me trying to, craft the narrative that this is a part of the brand of Jordan Rose, that I'm a DECA member, and besides being a DECA member, I'm a university student, but then I also have a marketing job. So I was trying to, paint a picture using my LinkedIn through various posts that, that's what I would be, I guess a subject matter expert in. So is that an example of what you mean by crafting your own personal brand and putting it out on social media in a specific way? Because there was other things that I didn't get to add in, like me working at Cactus Go. That wasn't necessarily needed, but that's what you mean by being able to pick and choose where you put it out.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So may I even ask you too as well, so you mentioned all the activities that you were doing out there in your university and so forth. Do you still have up-to-date content around that on your LinkedIn? Are you still posting about your time during that time of your life?
No, so I haven't posted because I wasn't sure if it was still relevant to the brand, because unfortunately I'm not, I'm not a part of DECA anymore since my graduation. So I was thinking, is it still relevant? Is it not relevant? Is it going to be one of those flashback fire posts?
What is DECA, by the way, for those who don't know?
Yeah, so if anyone who doesn't know, DECA is a business club for all university students, and even high schools have DECA as well. And within DECA, it allows you to compete in case competitions. So what those case competitions will look like, it can be in any category, whether it be management consulting, whether it be hospitality and tourism, fashion, whether it be accounting, finance, the list goes on. And ultimately, the main goal is to allow students to walk away with analytical skills, presentation skills, and communication skills. And after being a member of DECA for about a year and a half, I was then able to actually join the executive team and be a part of the team that was putting on these case competitions, as well as teaching young students how to compete in these case comps. So with that being said, something that sparked me to do, and this is how we even met via LinkedIn, was I started making these videos on LinkedIn where I talk about things that I learned during my sales internship. And as I was doing that sales internship, I was also working at a company doing a sales administrative internship. And through that, I figured, what? If I make this content on LinkedIn, I already have to make videos and stuff as a part of this DECA team, because at that time, it was in 2020 and 2021. So because we were in the pandemic, everything was remote. So the only way that we could really get a gauge is through posting more on social media. And that's an example. I mean, I think you reached out and you were just like, hey, could you tell me more about those videos? And for sure, the rest is history.
And honestly, I have to commend you for that.
Yeah,
First of all, you started early.
Yeah,
People don't post on LinkedIn until they really need to get a job and stuff like that. So I really want to commend you for that. And then the other thing I want to say is, we've been lied to most of our lives. Mm-hmm. And this is how. We're told that, okay, go to university, get your degree, and then somehow you'll get a job. Now let me tell you exactly why they lied to you, and why this doesn't necessarily apply in this current economy.
You're right.
Think of, let's focus on Canada, Ontario. right? Province in which Toronto is found. Every year there's about, let's just guess, 40, 50,000 people across this province that graduate from university.
Yeah.
You think there'll be a job waiting for them like that? And everybody now wants, six figures, all that type of stuff, which is arguably not a lot of work, right? But you think you're just going to get your university degree and then they'll be handed that? You have to do the extra work, which is why I commend you for. You started early. You gave yourself some space and some room to put yourself out there, right? And then the other thing is, I guess, maybe you could tell us a bit more about what went through your mind when you created content, right? Because a lot of students, a lot of even young professionals, they don't know what to post, right? So that's one thing I want you to, tell us a bit more about. Yeah, and then I got you. The other thing I just want to emphasize here is like, okay, you go out there, you have your degree, and then you focus your 4 years of university just getting good grades, and then what other value do you have to add to the market? Why do you deserve this job? If all these 30, 40,000 people have a university degree, one sets you apart. How are you putting your value out there? How have you been able to your leadership, team management skills, time management skills, collaboration skills? All those are things that these platforms allow you to showcase all the time. Please take it away.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that question because, you hit a very, or touched on a very real point, is that these jobs just aren't waiting for you. And because I mentioned DECA, I'm going to pick up from where I left off. So the reason why I joined the executive team on DECA is because, once again, it was in 2020. The pandemic had just started. A lot of companies were pulling back on hiring interns at that time. They just didn't have the budget. We are in a very weird place, as everyone knows. And with that being said, I said to myself, this experience isn't going to, get itself that I need to make things work. So what I did was I applied specifically for a director of speaker relations role, as well as a director of corporate relations role, knowing that either role is going to have to force me to reach out to organizations, whether it be with speakers, or whether it be for in-kind or direct monetary sponsorships. And through that, I would then be able to use DECA as my opportunity to connect with these people in a non-invasive way, because now I'm not the kid who's coming to them, messaging them on LinkedIn or emailing them saying, hey, can you help me get a job, or can I have a coffee chat with you, yada, yada. No, I'm actually reaching out to you because I want to know if you'd like to work with me and be a colleague almost to help service a community of 200 students who are purely there just to grow as a professional in their underground.
Nice. So I want to ask you a question about this, because I love the formula in which that you did this. So first of all, you mentioned that you decided to join the organization DECA, right? Within, you listed a few options, and all of the options that you mentioned were options that will require you to reach out. So you first put yourself in a position where you had a responsibility, i.e. was somewhat creating an impact through the organization. And that's when it sounds to me, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me that you waited until you were in this position of value, of creating value for, I guess, the student community that you all were serving, before you started to reach out to corporate professionals. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I did. And as I mentioned, because I knew that, it was going to be a little harder, and I did apply to places, didn't get anything back. I knew that all I have to do is just make sure that as I'm starting out in this role, from day one, the intention is to get as much value added to whoever I'm servicing as much as possible. So that way I have a lot of experience to draw from and a lot more to say next year, which would have been 2021 when I'm applying for these internships. So that was the logic behind it. And I knew that it would work regardless, because me being a part of DECA gives me that opportunity and gives me a piece of work or a project to work on this and demonstrate my skills and abilities to potential, I don't want to say employers, but I'll say potential employers, because whoever I'm connecting with for speaker relations or some sort of sponsorship, they may be the person who could potentially refer me. So that's why I was thinking that route. And then in addition to that, I just knew that DECA was definitely a great thing to have on the resume, And I knew that being a VP was definitely something that was in my books and that I was kind of looking towards. So with that being said, I got the role in May of 2020. And then that same month, within the first month of me being in that role, that's when a family friend had reached out to me and said, "Hey, Matt, I know you're doing your thing. I know you're grinding. I know that you didn't get an internship this summer. And I know that you're using your DECA position as like a replacement for your internship. How about you apply for my company and, put in your resume and we'll see where things go from there." So I did that. And funny enough, that was the sales administrative support internship role that I was telling you about. And then the role that I got for DECA was the director of corporate relations. So immediately, as soon as I got into that role, I was like, wait a minute, the corporate relations, I'm trying to get free in-kind for monetary sponsorships. But I'm working within a sales organization and I'm learning from account executives who are dealing with commercial sized businesses. And I'm realizing that they already have the system. Me learning how to use Zoom Info, and besides using Zoom Info, we'd also use Salesforce, and besides Salesforce, we had some other internal tools, but ultimately the entire system was laid out. So I literally used that system, brought it into the DECA organization, and it was because of myself and my BP. Shout out to Sarah, and if you're listening, Sarah, her and I and Gaia, we chipped away, and we managed to take the student group out of debt, and we were plus in a profit of $3,000 at the end of our term, which was exactly what we needed to present our case to then move into a VP role, like a fancy as role. But I say all this to say that sometimes it's not going to be straightforward. The jobs aren't necessarily going to be there waiting for you. Sometimes you just have to create the job yourself, and just be positive. And that's what I was thinking. Many times people would say to me "Oh, why are you doing DECA? You're not even getting paid for this, or it's not worthwhile, or whatever." But the thing is, I realized everything I'm learning from my internship, and I'm getting paid for that. I'm using those same skills inside DECA, so it's not as hard. It wasn't as much friction. So that's kind of my little experience. But I never answered your second question about the posting on social media. So by the time I got into posting on social media, it was actually something that me and my manager and my internship had discussed. And ultimately, what we wanted there to be content that was not entirely focused on our organization, but something that would teach people a little bit about what we do, but then also have it be relatable. So that was something that I was trying to toy around with. And also I was specifically trying to do videos. So this is before reels and stuff were a thing. And also in a time where people were hosting videos of themselves like that on LinkedIn. So with that being said, I started posting, and then from there I was getting a lot of positive feedback. And through that, me posting and me being out there with what I'm doing within the school community, even though it's free and I'm not getting paid for it and it's not worth it or whatever, so the haters would say, that was the same reason why somebody that I connected with, who was one of my mentors, he said he was watching my LinkedIn for a hot minute, and he said because of all the things that I've done and him seeing my successful track record, that's what made him decide to write me $1,000 check. Because literally because of my social media, he literally said word for word, "I saw you, interview with executives from TD. I seen you in the community doing DECA, this, that, the third, or whatever. So we wanted to give you $1,000 to get your career started." Now at that point, that was already jeez. Still, you'll make some noise. Yeah, some noise, mate. So that's ultimately the power of social media, and and that's how I leverage social media for my personal marketing strategy that got me to where I'm at.
Jordan, but I love it too. I don't understand this, right? Because I feel like what I'm hearing from this is almost like a formula for developing a personal brand that actually converts into something substantial. Now, I resonate fully with what you're mentioning, to the point where, similar to yourself, while I was at university, I did a lot of
extra volunteering work that people would come up to me and ask me like, Kyle, like, why are you doing all this? Like, why are you doing all of this stuff and so forth?
Very common.
Yeah, I did. I started to be honest, at the time, I really didn't know why I was doing all of this stuff. And
They can for real though. Like sometimes I would literally be thinking to myself, I'm like, why are they? And but you're like, I know why, but it's just like, yo, I have assignments. I have a job. I have things. And actually, like, yo, why do I keep pushing myself?
why are you doing this, right? Now, the interesting thing is like you get encouragement from certain people, and I'm sure you got encouragement from certain people, which is like the older folks and so on, such like the ones who like cut you the check. They mention, okay, they acknowledge the work that you're doing, whereas you may have some of your peers who they may not necessarily see that far. So I love that you mentioned in this because now I resonate fully to the point where even while you are doing all this extra stuff, you still continued to go above and beyond and take it on the internet, right? You brought it on LinkedIn. You started to make videos. You mentioned being being one of the people who brought out videos on LinkedIn, whilst others they wouldn't learn now. So that's something to me like a differentiator. Yeah, that got the right set of eyes on you, and I love this so much. I feel like I'm literally seeing aspects of my life overlapping with aspects of your life. Because correct me if I'm wrong. Did you know that this was going to happen at the time of you doing it? Like, did you see all these things happening?
No, I was very like short-sighted with it. Like I was like, okay, yeah, I just have to post a video today. And then that was one of my areas. Thought then too far into it. Also, like, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes, especially when it comes to LinkedIn, sometimes, like, I just feel like sick to my stomach, like, when it comes to like having to like put that post out there, because I'm just like, I don't know who's gonna be scrutinizing this. It'll be my next employer or whatever. So I would just make the video and then post it and put it out, and then yeah, and that was it. So I never really thought much would come from it. Maybe people would roast me. That's what I was expecting. Like some of the
Somebody saw this.
There's a saying that says you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
you have said this to me before. I remember this, and connecting back to both of your experiences when you mentioned people asking about why are you doing this exact.
I think a question that more people entering adulthood or planning for their 20s and their 30s is that they should be asking themselves two things. Am I a good steward of my resources? In your case, it was time. What are you using your time for? The other question that you could ask yourself is, as you go about life planning and skill building or even career development, what am I optimizing for? For some people, it can be I'm optimizing for money. I'm optimizing for learning and develop, right? Skill build. And that's what you mentioned, right? So I really wanted to double down on that. But now also looking at both of y'all's experiences in terms of, career development, skill building. One thing that sticks out, Jordan mentioned mentorship, right? Mentorship is big. Jordan also mentioned systems, right? And I think this is why we went about building a curriculum that's called the ABCs of Personal Marketing, right? This curriculum is kind of like not necessarily a blueprint, but it's a stack or a compilation of information that will allow you to save your time, money, and energy in taking informed decisions in building your career, right?
In this curriculum, we'll be diving into multiple constituents of personal brand. We'll be talking about appearance, behavior, and communication. And this personal brand aspect or angle that we're talking about is not only for the workforce. We're talking about personal branding across life. As we said, you're selling your way through life and you don't even know it. So how can you be more intentional about it, right? The tips and tricks that we will be talking about in this curriculum or in this podcast applies to your social life, your dating life, your professional life, and every realm of human endeavor, so that you can navigate and understand how you can communicate your value better to everybody you interact with. So Kyle, take it away.
All right, so as Carl mentioned, we'll be talking about the ABCs of personal marketing, and I just want to give a little context about this curriculum that we're talking about. So we've had the fine opportunity to present this curriculum and share it through workshops, keynote speeches, to an array of different high school students all across Ontario, Canada. I believe Carl also did a version in French too, as well, in France. This is essentially where we help high school students and also ourselves just to make sure that we show up the right way.
So let's begin with the first part. So the ABCs of personal marketing. The A stands for appearance, B stands for behavior, and C communication. Let's start with the first one, A, appearance. Now, very interestingly, I was preparing for this podcast, and I went back to this book that I was reading from one of my mentors who wrote it. His name is Luki. You can look him up on LinkedIn. A great guy to learn from. But essentially, whenever people they put a book together, that's where like they compile gems on top of gems. When you get somewhere towards about I think 3/4 in on the book, there's a summary point, and that summary point, it highlights a whole list of things in which that you're supposed to do if you want to unlock your career potential. Now, let's just think about this. If you want to unlock your career potential, this means that you really want to tap into your higher self. Guess what is point number 1? Point number 1 says look the part. Dress to impress. Right? Now, this also takes me back to something that a great man once told me, is that people treat you based on how you dress. Right? So this is what appearance is all about. We're not saying that this is the entire piece that you need to put your energy into, just trying to look good and so forth. You just need a few basic good clothing, right? You don't need Versace, you don't need Louis Vuitton, right? You don't need to have every different color suit or so forth. Nah, you just need the basics, right? What are the basics for the suits? I know you got it down correctly.
You need a blue suit,
right?
a beige suit,
Right?
a black suit,
Right?
a gray suit, and a tan suit.
Right, so that's what you get. That's what you want to collect all in all. But to begin with, you could just start with the blue. You could just start with the black. You could just start with the gray. Any one of them, and that would suffice. A good suit will last you for a good 3 to 5 years. All right, that's all you need.
And that's for gentlemen.
That's for gentlemen.
One thing I'll add though, if you don't have a good idea of that, in our first episode, you can actually take a look at the suits that we're wearing. We're actually wearing 3 different colors, so that should give you an idea of where to start.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And again, we sort of at the stage where we want to dress to really impress. So you may not necessarily get the pieces that we have per se. Right, so you may want to keep it a little bit basic. Right, anyway, so let's move on to the behavior piece, right? The B in the ABCs of personal marketing. All right, so it's all about behavior. That's what B stands for. And when you think about behavior, think about how is it that you are delivering on your promises to other people. This is where your reputation is built. It's how you behave in spaces, right? How do you interact with people? A matter of fact, what are people even saying about you after you've left them, right? Are you the kind of person that someone is going to say, oh, I'm not too sure how I feel when this person comes around? Do people welcome you, right? Do people say good things to other people when they talk about you? Right, that's where the behavior piece comes into play. And then the last point, which is one of the most important pieces, it's C for communication. Now, why is communication so important? I want to give you a story, right? And you all can humor me here too as well, just because our audience, they're not listening live. You all are the only live audience that we have. Is if a tree had to fall in a forest and no one heard it, did that tree fall or not?
Yeah, to me, it still fell.
It fell.
Yeah,
you're right. It fell.
but I mean, nobody has to know. Like if no one else saw it, then
Yeah, it's like it almost didn't fall because no one knew about it, right? So communication is important for that reason, because it could almost mean nothing. And I say almost mean nothing because yes, it did happen, right? But it could almost mean nothing if you're not able to communicate all the great things that you're doing, or even articulate all the great things that you would like to do, right? So, this essentially is the ABCs of personal marketing, and this is what we share, especially towards the youth. We focus mainly on the youth because we see this as the future, right? The 10-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, the college, the university students, they're the ones who are going to soon become the corporate leaders. They're the ones who are going to become the political leaders. And they're the ones that we like to put more of our energy into it. And, the clear reason is we're also young, right? A few years ago, we were in those exact same positions. And when we think about personal marketing, we want to think about
our reputation. We want to think about our brand. We want to think about how is it that we are carrying ourselves through life to make sure that, hey, whenever we need something, we have a pool of people within our network that are eager to help us because they know that this person is good for it. Your reputation is what you have. It's all that you really have at the end of the day. That reputation, you destroy it, it's going to take you a lifetime to build. You do it right, it's going to help you throughout your entire lifetime.
So yeah, I think it'd be worthwhile to dive a bit more into each, right? Appearance, more specifically. You know, you briefly talked about how from a surface level you can take care of, you know, what types of clothes you want to wear, right? And that you're treated based off of how you dress and things of that nature. But also we want to think about the details, right? Are you well groomed? You know, a lot of people tend to look at the shoes first. So what shoes are you wearing? Right? But outside of that context as well, when we bring it into, or we bring it back to the bigger picture, is think about it. If you wear a suit to the airport, you're more likely to be treated, you know, a different way. And if you just wore like joggers and stuff like that. Now I understand, you know, don't come at me with, oh, I want to be comfortable and stuff like that. But this is just an example, right? This applies to everything. I've been to places where I just caught people's eyes because I was wearing something particular. It doesn't need to be super flashy, but
You make a good point. You know, and the reason why I say that is because one of my good friends, Crystal, who I'm hoping we can get on the pod, you know, once you schedule it out. Crystal always says to me, she always says, dress how you want to be addressed. And take control of how people talk to you and how they treat you through like what you're wearing and through your appearance, which is why I'm glad that you circled back on that. And especially brought up that story about like you've been stopped before based off of what you're wearing.
Definitely. And you know, you also want to going into behavior is also you want to dive into starting to act the part, right? Starting to act what you want to attract, right? Because inevitably you will attract the people that kind of think at your frequency or think at the level that you are thinking of, right? Kyle, I think you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention about the shoes that you spoke about, right? Because you mentioned you want to make sure that you have proper shoes, and I just wanted to put it out there because I do see a lot of people in this day and age, they go out with dirty shoes, and I wanted to talk about it. Right? I feel like it's worth going into, mainly because it could be misunderstood and think that, okay, you need to probably have like a name brand shoe. No, I think it should just be clean, right? Which is simple. Everyone has a rag, right, that you could use to just wipe the shoe, take a tissue, clean it up and so forth. Right? Use something. So, whatever it is that you have, you should take care of it, is all that I'm saying, right? If you have one black pair of shoe, right, or one white shoe, keep it white, keep it black, keep it clean. Don't have it mixed colors and so forth, right? And because sometimes people, they do this, like they will wear blazers, they will wear or they will sort of wear a suit, but then when you look down in the shoes, it's like, oh yeah, right? But it's the details that people didn't necessarily pay attention to. It adds another level to your character when you present yourself in a certain way. Take for example, so once a week I travel to the University of Toronto Mississauga campus so I could go teach my tutorial classes, and every time I go, I dress a certain way, and I noticed that there's a change whenever I walk down the halls of UTM. So UTM stands for University of Toronto Mississauga, and this is where I did my undergraduate degree, so I'm extremely familiar with that school. I went there for 4 years, right? And I remember walking down the hall as a student where, I'd just be one of the students, because I'd be dressed casually and so forth, probably wear a hoodie and so on. But now, whenever I walk down, I'm properly dressed, I have a dress shirt, sometimes I may have a jacket on top of it and so forth. And, you've seen that I walk with one of those rolling bags as opposed to a backpack. So it commands a different level of attention. And the feeling that I get is one of more sophistication. There'll be occasional times where I'll run into someone that I knew from undergrad and so forth, and they'll be like, oh, are you teaching here now?
That's one of the first things that they say in their mind, right? And I love hearing this. And even though I do have to correct them and let them know that, hey, I'm just a teaching assistant where I support professors, but that's the kind of reaction that I would love to get. And you know what my response is? Well, teaching, it's always out there as something to do, right? It's always the opportunity that we have, right? We teach every day others, even if we're not necessarily labeled as teachers and so forth. So, I give a bit of a wordplay and something to think about. Right, but I just wanted to click in more on the aesthetics and to show like the effect it has.
It really does go a long way, and even just on like a personal level, when you're just going out or everyday, I guess errands, you don't even know who you're necessarily gonna run into. You never know when you could run into your next business partner, so you gotta always like keep that in mind. And I know that there are some days where you just don't care. Like I had those days sometimes, but the reality is, it's just always better. Just be prepared, be ready.
Take this in. If you go grocery shopping in a suit, right, that's a whole different effect.
It's extreme, but it is a whole different effect.
Yeah, it is. It is extreme coming from like this current point of view, speaking to probably like the younger audience and so forth, but at some point in time, this should be a normal state in our lives, right? We should regularly be going to the grocery store in our suits because we just came from business, right? Right. So we sort of want to put ourselves in that state of mind because this is how we want to operate.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes, like on certain days, rather than wearing track pants or like just jeans or something like that, I'll prefer to put on khakis instead, because I find that even just wearing khakis with like a golf shirt, that's like my equivalent. Like if I know I want to wear something chill, but I really want to get more on like the professional side, I'm like, at least like it looks like I'm going to play golf or something like that. That's as chill as I try to go for everything.
One thing I'll say is I hope the audience doesn't catch you guys slipping on your outfits.
Nah.
I know I'm gonna hold it down, but if there's a drip report that comes out, I'm just like, I'm gonna be fine. You know what I'm saying?
I want to ask you all a question. All right, so you all have had the experience from working from home, right?
Yep.
All right.
I know where you're going with this.
How do you dress?
I dress from the waist up.
Hey, you gotta keep that for yourself now. Come on. You gotta keep that for yourself.
With shorts with track pants on, of course.
Yeah. I would say, what do they call it? Athleisure?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, I try to. The other thing is like, for me, what I wear helps also with my behavior. So obviously, if I wear a suit, I'll be, up to par. If I wear a polo as well, it helps me be a bit more focused. If I'm in a t-shirt, I don't know what's the science behind it, but I feel like I'll be a bit less, a bit slacky, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a content creator named Iman Gadzhi. He actually there's a part of his episode on YouTube or something like that where he must have said something like he wears like a full blown like outfit. He has like a work uniform. So although we all know he's an entrepreneur, he works for himself, he basically picked out a few clothing items that would be his work attire, and that even comes with shoes. So
Nice.
he's wearing shoes inside of his house. Like obviously they're brand new.
I love
but,
that.
but he's wearing shoes and jeans and like I think it's like a dress shirt or a golf shirt, depending on whatever it is. But I did try that one day, and it actually wasn't bad. Like now the shoes is a little coming from from my Jamaican mom, I don't think she can process that. I don't think she's cool with that. Maybe if we were in the States, but in terms of wearing the jeans and like a nice sweater with like maybe a dress shirt underneath it, that's my style. That would be my go-to at home. And I feel like that it does something different with the psyche. Like it makes you feel like you gotta sit more upright. Like you feel more like
that's exactly why I asked that
Yeah.
question, right? Because I wanted to bring that forth. Like to be honest, I do dress up fully with the shoes and all if I'm working from home, and my calendar might be clear from meetings. I may just have to work on my task, right? But when I stand up, I feel like I'm standing up into an audience.
I feel like I have my entire company looking at me, and I have to, walk down the aisle, and they're gonna greet me and say, hey, Mr. Thomas, good day, how you doing, and so forth. It sets the tone. I mean, mind you, I don't do this every day. I don't do this 5 days a week and so forth. Of course, sometimes I'm gonna wake up and just be in my hoodie because I want to just get right into work, right? So yeah, I mean, we always have that too as well. But we should also normalize that we could be out there fully dressed up, and no one doesn't necessarily have to see us. What's important is that we see ourselves how we should be seen at our best.
Definitely. I actually want to go back to a point that you mentioned earlier. You talked about how you would be walking down, the halls of the university at which you teach, right, as a teaching assistant, and there's some sort of attention that you gather, right? And I actually want to use this as a point to transition into behavior, right? This attention that you're getting, how are you leveraging it, or how are you converting it? Okay, when people come to meet you or come to ask you these questions and want to know more about you, what does your behavior and attitude say about yourself, right? So Kyle, I want to bring back the conversation to attention. Earlier on, you mentioned that you would walk down the halls and a lot of people would come to you and ask you questions, right? Why are you doing this? Oh, you're teaching here now, etc., right? But one thing that I really want to stress is your appearance matching with your behavior, right? Are you being standoffish and things of that nature? And I want us to kind of dive into behavior and why it's important for us to not only think about the superficiality of things, but also look within.
That's right. So, I love that you bring it in out there, because whenever I think about, okay, how are people they're seeing me, I think of my appearance as a reflection of what's inside. So you see the smile, right? Whenever people they see me and I give this smile, I know I immediately command and bring out good energy from them. Because that's a smile. Like, why are you gonna cry at me when I'm smiling at you, right? With a nice, beautiful smile. So that's one of the things that I like to push forward. And in terms of what comes out of it, how is it that I treat people, in behavior and so forth. What I've noticed is that some of my students, they may see me walking down the halls and so forth. They'll say hi. Some of my past colleagues that I've seen, working at university or even just studying at university, I may run into them again and so forth. And, again, we'll say hi, we'll catch up briefly and so forth. But one of the things that I've always tried to push forward and I've seen they respond favorably is, number one, I myself need to be welcoming, right? Because that's where it begins. It begins with me just being welcoming, and then later on, I may see that this transforms and converts into something else. Like, take for example, number one, I always tell myself that I operate as a magnet. Opportunities, they come towards me. I don't necessarily go out there and I chase opportunities. Nah, they come towards me. And it's whenever I put myself out there, I continuously embody that star that I think I am, right? I ensure that I present myself in this way as best as possible, so therefore people, they know that I'm good for it. Take for example, 2 weeks ago, one of my students, she came up to me and she said, "Hey Kyle, I remember the first day that you introduced yourself to us in the class. You mentioned that you share about identity. You talked about identity, you talked about personal branding, you talked about dressing and so forth. And we're actually thinking of doing something around Black History Month in 2025, and we'd like to have you and probably somebody else to share with us." And the first thing I asked her was like, "How many people do you need?" Right? Because I have a whole team of people that I could bring. Right? So, that's one of the ways in which that things, they transform and so forth. Another example is that, just because I'm in that space of working so closely with students, I see students all the time. A lot of students, they book office hours with myself. Sometimes it's not even just to talk about school, but it's to talk about things apart from what we're learning in class. Just because, they like that energy, and then we network and so forth. But what I'm getting at is there's another student of mine that I encountered who just so happened to be there's this student that I met who just so happened to be on the journey of starting off their own digital marketing agency, right? So mind you, I started mine just about a year ago, right? And this student, they're starting off theirs too as well. So you could just imagine the amount of conversation that we had. And we met each other again. So I think this was the first time we met was last semester, about 4 months ago. And now we met again
you know, within the September fall semester. And yeah, we started to catch up and talk about things again, right? But it's that whole idea of, all right, because I'm showing up and so forth, right, in my best self, the best version of myself, then we can continue talking about our greatness, and then we can continue sharing ideas. Let's compare this to if I was not performing, right? If I was not maintaining my aesthetics, my looks, and so forth, if I wasn't maintaining, okay, my academics and so on, then if we had to run into each other again, how would that conversation look? Well, one, I could be looking like a bum, and all I would get is pity, right? They'd be like, this guy has so much potential. Right? You see what I mean? Right? So it's like, I'm just giving this contrast because things could go in many different ways. The opportunities, they come to me because one, people, they know I'm good for it. Right? And then I embody that. I embody that greatness that I like to think about.
Yeah, facts. So how about you, Jordan? What's your take on behavior? And then I'll add my piece as well.
When it comes to, you know, how you act, I feel like you always have to be very, very self-aware, because just because you think, and this kind of goes back to your example about the tree falling and, you know, no one being around. Sometimes you think the tree fell and no one's around, but that's not actually the case. You know, you got to really think about what's happening internally, how that's being projected outwards. And I think that's something that a lot of folks need to be very mindful of in regards to their behavior, that sometimes it's not about what you say, or, you know, it's about how you say it and how it kind of comes out, and about that intentionality or the feelings that you have behind certain like, I guess, things that you're trying to put out there. I feel like I'm not fully explaining it properly, but what I mean is, it's just people can see through a lot of stuff, like more than people like to let off on. So you know, when you're thinking about how to, you know, manage your behavior, especially outside of your house, and, you know, when you're going into, you know, institutions that are primarily filled with faculty members, or if not that, going into work, I feel like just always keeping a good sense of self-awareness is definitely something that I personally like to do. And I feel like you can never really go wrong when you're highly self-aware, and on top of that, also just trying to be as authentic as possible, because people can't sense it.
Yeah, bro, I love that you mentioned this self-awareness piece, right? And I love that you even brought it back to the example of a tree falling, right? So I wanna talk a little bit about that, because when I hear the idea of, all right, a tree falling, and I hear about self-awareness, is that sometimes we could be that tree, right? And we could have fallen, and we could have not even realized that we fell, right? Because that self-awareness within us wasn't activated. Right? We didn't realize, okay, this is how we were carrying ourselves. We didn't realize, oh, you know, I was talking to this person and there was animosity in my voice, and so forth, right? So I love that you mentioned about this self-awareness piece, because at the end of the day, you want to be fully conscious about how you're behaving and how people are receiving you. This actually leads very well into the communication aspect piece. But Carl, before we go into talking about the last letter within the ABCs of personal marketing, I want to hear your take about behavior.
Lovely. So to me, behavior is the pathway to heightened responsibility. What do I mean by that? We'll say that your reputation precedes you. That's a popular saying, right? Your reputation precedes you, and how are you navigating, I guess, building that reputation, right? So when I say it's your path to heightened responsibility, you want to think about how you're being reliable in the teams that you're working in a corporate space or in a working environment, or any team collaborative effort. How are you becoming irreplaceable by the value that you bring to the teams, right? That's really what I think about when I talk about behavior, and, for example, being a self-starter, right? Are you that type of person that will bring people together around a vision, or are you more a facilitator, for example, right? So that's really what I think about when we talk about behavior. And then,
so it sounds to me like it's all about, like, putting things into action.
Correct. Putting things into action and living up to the standard at which you deliver work, right? Yeah. So I guess that will wrap up my point, but I want to go into communication briefly, right? Because when we think about communication, it's not just social media, right? In our previous episode, we talked about social media briefly and having your landing page on social media answering 3 questions: who you are, what you do, and how you can help. But now we want to dive a bit more into the public speaking piece, the communicative, like oral communication, but we also want to dive into written communication. How are you leveraging the right words to paint a picture? How are you communicating via email in a professional manner, right? Do you know the standards at which you're supposed to be communicating and how you're going about delivering your message? The tone as well, right? And then when it comes to the public speaking or just communicating your value, how are you being intentional with that, right? Are you thinking about it twice? Are you giving yourself grace when you make mistakes? Are you pacing yourself, right? Pacing is key. Tonality is key. As you said, it's not what you say, but it's how you do it, right? So yeah, that's my piece on communication, and I'll let you guys take it away.
So I actually have something I'd like to add about communication, especially for those who are very shy when it comes to like putting yourself out there. I feel like there is always an opportunity or a reason for you to feel shy, because as you start to level up in your career, as the stakes start to get higher and higher, there's always going to be a reason for you to feel nervous about public speaking or just about networking. So
And that's great.
I think the easiest.
I think being nervous is great, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
It shows that you care.
Yeah, I was literally about to say, like, it shows that you care, and it shows that, like, and also sometimes I feel like where there's the most resistance in your life, I feel like that is exactly what you need to walk towards. So when I think back to my experience when I was on campus, this was second year, first week of September, and I remember walking through the campus. This is in the Ted Rogers School of Management building, and I remember the DECA representative calling me over saying, "Hey, would you like to join?" And at that moment, I was like, this was cool in high school. Like, I kind of got made fun of for it, and I was feeling a little nervous, and I didn't want to necessarily step outside my comfort zone. But I was like, you know what? Honestly, I could use it, and I put myself out there. Then it came to the first case competition itself, where I actually had to present something in front of a judge with only having 15 minutes to read and analyze a case and then come up with the solution. That was nerve-wracking. But that nervousness was like an adrenaline. Like it felt like a bit of a high. So I feel like using that nervousness as a fuel to, take yourself to like the highest level, I feel like that is where you can really leverage that. So I feel like you being nervous shows that you care, and depending on how you use that, it can actually be one of your strong suits.
I have a beautiful saying on that, by the way. If you're nervous, this is for you. I do a lot of public speaking. I dance and all that type of stuff. I've danced in front of 20, 30,000 people, right? So this is
For an affirmation too.
So this is a key trick that I got from somebody, one of my mentors, right? He said, it's okay to have butterflies. Just make sure they fly in the same direction. Going back to your piece about converting that nervousness and that energy, just make sure it goes in the right way so that you can benefit from this sentiment that you're feeling. But it shouldn't make you feel like you should not present yourself. It shouldn't take you away from the opportunity in which you're stepping in. And that's my take.
And I think that's what we were created to do, is for us to operate at our highest potential, where it's like, the thing is, we can't control many things in life, and we have to think about ourselves as we're like a boat sailing, one of those sailboats where you have to move with the wind. Now, in order for you to still get to your destination, all you need to do is shift the sail, so then you start to sail in the right direction. And so I love this, because this actually makes me think about alchemy, where it's like you transform something that is negative into something that is positive, right?
Big one.
And
That's a bar.
that's
a bar.
Yeah, that's right. We can think about energy transmutation, where you can transform things, and that's some of the God-given talents that we have. Now, to share my piece about communication, I wouldn't be a digital marketer if I didn't talk about communication on a level where we involve visual communication. So when I say visual communication, right, I think about how is it that they're receiving a message. Interestingly, I had a meeting with a student just last week, and I was forced to go through a few basics on Microsoft Excel. And I think probably like midway through the conversation, I told the student like, hey, I'm sharing an example of how you could use Excel as a calculator, but I actually want you to look at it in the broader lens where you came to me with, a request on, hey, Kyle, I want to learn a little bit more about Excel to help with our projects and to help with the upcoming midterm. And I said, let's take a step back and look at the program that you're studying, right? The program that you're studying is called Digital Enterprise Management. And now the program that it's under, the institution that it's under is called the Institute of Communication Culture. So I said at the end of the day, all of what we're doing is about communication. So the way in which that you organize your spreadsheet, it should be for you to communicate a certain level of information. And what we actually went through was not necessarily just how to do a calculation, but we went through 30 minutes of how we could represent that same calculation in a different manner, right? So this is us looking at the same intent of a message, and we're looking at how can we represent that in different ways. And this is one of the things that I personally love to think about within my pastime is how is it that I can transform one thing into another? Again, Carl, you probably know this, I may have shared this with you at one point in time, but I think about myself as a highly philosophical businessman where I like to go behind the scenes, peel back the curtains and think about, okay, how are things actually working before I move forward on it, right? I mentioned the example of being a digital marketer, right? So when it comes towards working on my client's website, I feel like what I do within that phase of trying to help them with building their site, I'm actually pulling information from their brains.
Yeah.
I'm extracting it and then I'm putting it up on the screen. I'm taking information also from their customers, their target audience, where I get to know them so well. I know exactly how they're going to tick. I know where they're going to click. I know this so well to the point is I can anticipate and say, all right, once we launch this website, you're going to be so busy, right? You're going to max out your capacity. And then afterwards, we're going to have to think of something new because that's point you need to grow.
Yeah, I guess that's how you deliver value consistently, right? By having good systems in place and, those systems that are tried and proven, right?
Exactly. So just to wrap up this point there is with good communication is all about getting your vision out there to be properly understood and well received. And you could do this for anything, any business idea, any question that you like to answer on an assignment, and so forth. It's all about getting what is in here out there
in a concise manner because we have short attention spans.
That's right.
Of course.
That's right.
So, I think this is definitely where we can, call it a day in this episode. This was honestly one of the more interesting ones because today we actually learned about a lot. We got to, break down the ABCs, but not only did we get to break down the ABCs, we got to talk about how your reputation and how you present yourself contributes to your influence on people. And not only your influence, just how you're perceived, right? And in addition to that, it was also nice that we were all able to kind of share very practical experiences and very, tangible and give tangible advice as well on how to overcome certain things, how to add things into your life to really be presenting yourself in the best possible way and to sell yourself in the best way possible without selling yourself short. Because there's a lot of times, even myself in the past, I know for a fact that I've actually sold myself short. But that's why we're here today. We're all here to share our own little 2 cents that can make a whole lot of sense to you guys when it comes to selling yourself. So that's my closing thoughts for today. Do you guys have any? Oh wait, and one thing I'll say: make sure you download our SWOT analysis worksheet. This is something that has been proven to help people declutter some of the thoughts that are in their mind, and it'll allow you to get very clear and precise on what your vision is and and really how to better position yourself. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I think that's a phenomenal starting point. Use that SWOT analysis that we build out, get a greater understanding of yourself, and put your best foot forward in terms of what value you bring to teams you've worked on and what value you aspire to bring moving forward.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it too as well. Is on the SWOT analysis. It's actually a mandatory piece within our workshop curriculum. right? We always save a section to allow our audience to go through this SWOT analysis, because at the end of the day, you want to push forward your strengths and you want to make your weaknesses not applicable, right? So on that note, let's go out there, let's chase our greatness, and let's keep in mind that our reputation is all that we truly have. People know us for what is it that we've done, and they trust us for what we will do because they know we're good for it. And that's all about personal marketing. That's all about selling ourselves.
The best is yet to come. And that was a great enablement, fellas.
All right, thank you. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. And make sure if you do end up filling out that SWOT analysis, email us, reach out to us, share your results, with that, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, because we'd love to talk more about it and take it from there. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.